Joe Burrow, with his position on whether or not the Bills Bengals game that was the final game of Week 17 should be resumed, will be resumed. And Chris, you and I talked this through yesterday, and we both came to the conclusion they just can't finish that game for a variety of reasons. They just can't, and they shouldn't try to. They've been considering various options. Troy Vincent said yesterday on the conference call he's given it no consideration. His sole focus has been Damar Hamlin, and as soon as this conference call ends, I'm going to turn my attention to resolving the scheduling issues. And what I heard late last night is that the current momentum is pointing toward canceling the game and then having Bills and Bengals play 16. Everyone else plays 17, and the playoff seedings are determined based on winning percentage. That was something we discussed yesterday, and that was a general mechanism that the league put in place for 2020 with the pandemic, assuming that multiple games would be canceled due to teams not having enough players or coaches to proceed. Somehow they got all the games in. They had to move some to Tuesday, move some to Wednesday. We had Monday doubleheaders. They were very creative in their scheduling and very flexible in their roster manipulation rules to allow that to happen. So they didn't have to use it, but they had it ready. And as of last night, everything was pointing in that direction. And my guess is folks are just going to sleep on it, and this morning they're going to make a decision. And that very well may be the decision that gets made and announced, I'd say at some point before noon Eastern today.
I think it's the one that makes the most sense. You know, it's the one that seems to be at least the least amount of hoops and, you know, craziness that we got to deal with as far as to figure it all out. It's not fair. You know, I get that. It's not fair to the Bills or the Bengals or the Ravens for that matter. You can go down the line here. It affects more than just these two teams. But, you know, one, like we talked about, it just doesn't seem right as far as to put them back together at the scene of the crime and just kind of relive that experience again. And, you know, two, let's just keep this machine rolling here a little bit and go from there. I feel like this is the best way, even though it's not perfect. It's not. And the other thing too, Mike, is, you know, again, yeah, Kansas City, by all due accounts, if they win this weekend, they're going to get home field advantage, and, you know, not necessarily sure that's right, but at the same time, we saw the Bengals go in there in the AFC Championship game and beat them last year. The Bills have beat them there 2 out of the last 3 times they've played them. And, I mean, of course, it was a miracle that they're not 3 for the last 3. And, you know, just like you saw Joe Burrow there, you know, again, I know it's advantage Kansas City here a little bit, but with guys like Joe Burrow or Josh Allen, you could see right there. Joe Burrow's like, I don't care. You know, yeah, it stinks, and, you know, we'll play you wherever. I mean, that's the way those guys are. We'll play you in the parking lot if it's to go to the Super Bowl. Don't you worry. We'll be effing ready, right? That's how that group is there, those two, if I know them. So they'll have their troops, and them themselves will be ready to go to face that challenge when and if that time comes. But I think this is the one that makes the most sense to me, Mike.
As someone suggested to me yesterday, anybody that would complain about whatever outcome the league picks because it's going to be the best of a bunch of bad outcomes, anybody who would complain about that needs to get checked for whether or not they have a soul.
Yeah,
because
seriously.
There is a point where we have to put down the petty, stupid little complaints that really do seem stupid. You know, just the idea, the complaints that we heard, it just shows you how trivial everything can seem when life gets put in perspective.
Right.
The big talking point as of Monday was that Seahawks fans were upset that the Lions would know that they're done if the Seahawks beat the Rams when the Lions play the Packers, so the Lions won't try as hard to beat the Packers, whereas if the games were being played at the same time, the Lions would maybe beat the Packers, Seahawks beat the Rams, Seahawks get in the playoffs. That's, you know, and again, it's natural and it's normal, and it's kind of nice to be in a mode where that is the biggest problem you have. If that's the biggest problem you have, life's going pretty well. So now that we're dealing with Damar Hamlin's situation and hoping that he gets better and concerned about him and focused on him, where the AFC Championship game is played, who has home field advantage, who benefits from the cancellation of the Bills-Bengals game, that doesn't matter. And, hey, there's no guarantee the Bills were going to win the game. The Bengals are getting the short end of it here, too. They could have been the 1 seed.
Exactly.
They could have been the 1 seed.
The way that game looked,
they
right?
could have won that game.
Yeah, it looked like Cincinnati was
Yes.
going to move the ball up and down the field on Buffalo. It was a little scary looking, honestly, from that. But so you're right. They have every bit to be disappointed here, too. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, man.
No, you're fine. But yeah, they could have been the 1 seed. And I tell you what, they could still be the 2 seed. If the Bills lose to the Patriots on Sunday, the Patriots trying to get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
The Bills, again, who knows whether the Bills are going to be ready to play. We'll talk about that in a second. But if the Bills lose and the Bengals win, the Bengals are going to be the 2 seed. And the Bills are going to be the 3 seed. And if they both win their wild card games, it's going to be Bills at Bengals, Chris, in the divisional round.
Yeah, that could be a little weird for sure. But nonetheless, we'll get to see them settle it on the field. Once again, that's the great thing here is hey, listen, even though the order might not end up being correct when all said and done, everybody's going to have a say on what happens here, on the field of competition. And they'll have their 60 minutes to go wait and prove that they were the better football team. And we've seen a lot of teams on the road winning the playoffs. It's not as a big deal as it was or used to be back in the old days. It just doesn't. We seem to see that all the time. Again, and with these quarterbacks, as we know, they're special. They can overcome anything there. So it's not perfect. It's not. And a lot of teams are being screwed over here. It's just the way the situation is here. And, yeah.
No one should care.
No one should care.
That's
You're right.
the bottom line.
And the Bills are going to get ready to play a Patriots team this week. You're right. And you don't know where their minds are going to be. It could go either way. It could be, we were, distracted and thinking about something else all week. It could go, let's rally together here for DeMar, and they go out and put their best outing together. It could go either way with these situations, and that's where we don't know either, and we can't, judge it too crazy here 3-4 days out.
Sometimes that 3 hours to just focus on football is the respite that you need for everything that you've been worried about. The question came up during yesterday's conference call about whether or not the Bills will be ready to play. And Troy Vincent made it clear that they are going to let Coach Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills guide the league in that regard. And he didn't rule out postponing the Patriots at Bills game. Now, that introduces another layer and level of complexity because what do you do? How long do you postpone it? At some point, the Bills have to play again. When will the Bills be ready to play? Would they move Bills Patriots to Monday? Well, that's the national championship game, so that becomes difficult. Do you move it to Tuesday? Then when do the teams that make it for the playoffs play their wild card games? I mean, there's a whole new set of dominoes that start to fall if the Bills truly aren't ready to play. But the big takeaway I had from Troy's comments yesterday, if the Bills aren't ready to play, they're not going to make them play. And I don't think anybody who isn't mentally and emotionally ready to play should be expected to play. It's an honest conversation that needs to be had. I said this yesterday. They need to have healthcare professionals talking to everyone in the organization, one-on-one, not in a group setting. One-on-one. Are you okay? How are you feeling? Assess the individual. Look in their eyes. Read their body language. Are you okay? What can we do to help you? What do you need to talk about? What do you need to understand? Chris, some of these guys are younger than my son. I mean, some of these guys are confused. They don't know. And some of them may just need to hear, this is an incredibly rare condition. You don't have to be worried that it's going to happen to you. Here's what you need to tell your parents. If your parents need to talk to someone, here's who we can talk to get people comfortable with the idea that yes, it's possible. We've seen now that it's possible, but it's incredibly rare. And I think that just may be part of what they need to talk through. And also the trauma of what they witnessed, a very graphic and disturbing and troubling scene in the middle of a football field.
Yeah, that's what makes it double worse. You're going to have some guys,
you're going to have some guys that are going to have an element of PTSD.
Sure.
That needs to be processed. That just the mere act of going back out onto the football field is going to make everything go back to that moment. And they are going to find themselves, when they otherwise should be completely focused on the highest level of athletic performance to protect themselves and others around them, they're going to find themselves with feelings that they don't understand, that they've never experienced before, and they're not going to know why. It's just simply because they're back in a similar situation. That's why playing Bills Bengals, it's one of the reasons why it makes no sense. that's another one of the issues. And these are things that are all possibly happening at a time when the clock keeps ticking and ticking and ticking toward Week 18. It's a difficult situation for everyone, and I just hope that I get frustrated because we haven't had any firm decisions, but there are a lot of things that need to be taken into account before firm decisions are made.
Yeah.
And I trust that folks are properly brainstorming issues, identifying issues, addressing potential problems, and the right decisions will be made at the right time beyond canceling Bills Bengals. That's an easy decision to make. Of all the decisions out there, that's the easiest one. The tougher decision, Chris, what do you do if the conclusion is made after talking to all the Bills players and coaches and staff that they're just not ready to play, and here's what we need to do, here's how much time they need, here's what needs to happen before they will be ready to play. They may never be completely ready. At some point, you're just as ready as you're ever going to be, and you just have to move forward or never go. These are very difficult decisions, and they're happening at what otherwise is the final act of the NFL's regular season. It really is astounding to think of all the different factors that are coming into play here.
It is. It's the Bills should be at the forefront of the league's mind for sure. They're the ones that have the most mental obstacles to overcome. Like we talked about yesterday, I feel like a lot of people, a lot of his football players too. I'd be one that, hey, let's get out and practice. Yeah, that's fun, and I don't have to think about life as much. And playing a game again, same would do the same thing for me. And I do believe a lot of football players are wired that way. But Buffalo, yeah, they're different than the rest of like we talked about to start the show. The other 31 teams are kind of going right now. So it's in the back of their mind, and yeah, they've had, meetings and everybody feels bad and whatever else, but they're going. They're going. They're practicing. They're all that. Buffalo is in a different state. There is at least a state of mind there, and that's where the NFL definitely has to make sure, the mental aspect of the Bills players is in the right place. And football's too crazy of a sport. It's too brutal, as we know, for people not to be totally present there. When you're distracted and you're thinking about other things, that's when more injuries happen. That's like truly a player safety concern there. So, that's where I think McDermott, the coaches that are up there in Buffalo, hopefully some of the, human resources people, they'll be able to gauge the temperature of the football team there. And, if they're able to, focus and kind of not put this behind them, but at least just focus on the task at hand and be able to play that way and put all their, mental energy there for the time they're in the facility or on the practice field or playing the game on Sunday, and that they're not, somewhere else where, it could lead to some bad things.
There has been some conversation about the possibility of utilizing neutral site for the AFC Championship game in order to balance out the competitive disadvantage that arises from neither the Bills nor the Bengals having an opportunity to get a victory in that Week 17 game. Hey, you know what? If this falls, Bills at Bengals in the divisional round, I really do think that there needs to be a conversation about whether or not that game should be played at a neutral site. For some of these issues we're discussing, I don't think we should expect the Bills and the Bengals to play on that field again this year. I really don't. Either as the continuation of the regular season game or as this is how the playoff tree shakes out. Bills at Bengals, Saturday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. I think they need to consider playing it somewhere else, Chris. And I'm not saying they should. I'm just saying it's a conversation that needs to be had because I don't know that it's in anyone's best interest for those two teams to play a football game in that location again this year. Next year, it's a different issue. Months go by. The teams change. Everything's different. I'm talking about, in a period of just a couple of weeks from now.
Right.
The idea of those two teams playing again on that field, it doesn't sound like a good idea. And at a minimum, it's something that needs to be talked through very carefully.
No, I hear that. It definitely needs to be thought about. I would agree with that. It does. That's one where, you're opening up fresh wounds there, and that does get into the, the mental part of some of the things we were just talking about there. You know, that to me would is like worst case scenario. If that shakes out to where somehow we get done with this weekend and Cincinnati's 2 and Buffalo's 3, I think for sure that's something the NFL is going to have to think about. They'll have 2 weeks to kind of ponder. And okay, if these teams win the wild card games, they're going to be playing each other. You know, and I'm hear you there, Mike. I really do. That's a sensitive one for sure.
We're going to pivot to other issues related to other teams and other games, specifically quarterback health updates and other strategic quarterback decisions. But before we go, this tweet from Adam Schefter of ESPN.com. Damar Hamlin's father, Mario Hamlin, addressed the entire Bills team on a Zoom call Wednesday to personally update everyone in attendance on his son, per source. Mario Hamlin informed the Bills that Damar was making progress, and in the words of one source, quote, the team needed it. So that's the latest word that we have. We'll continue to provide any updates as they may transpire over the course of the show. If it's after the show, we'll do it at ProFootballTalk.com. When we return, some quarterback updates for Week 18. We'll be back with more right after this. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.